Kent Pierce is joining us now with the very latest. And Kent, as Aaron was just reporting, it looks like as the hours go on, this all started just around 10 o'clock this morning, the phone call coming in at 9:30, that more and more police are arriving on scene. In fact, I'm hearing Homeland Security may be involved as well. Are you hearing that at all from the scene?
Well, we did see a good-sized trailer pull up 15 minutes or so ago that was labeled State of Connecticut, Department of Homeland Security. It was labeled the Incident Command Center, I believe. Went by us. It kind of went around the green and is now somewhere, I think, over in the vicinity of maybe the Schubert Theater, or at least over by Chapel Street somewhere. So, yeah, State Homeland Security, which is it kind of works hand in hand with the state police, so it's all sort of the same kind of entity. So it's not a big surprise that they'd be involved with this, because we've got alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and the FBI federal agencies already involved in this too. So having the state Department of Homeland Security involved in this, not a big surprise if you think about the things in the state of Connecticut that could potentially be targets. Of course, world famous Yale University has to be among them, and in fact it has been a target of incidents before. The Unabomber, an unknown bomber, have already attacked the campus in years past, so it's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility for it to be in the sights of somebody wishing to do harm. Now, what all of that police presence is doing, they are literally going door to door within the dormitories, because we just talked to a sophomore, one of the very few students on campus today, because almost everybody is home. There are no classes this week. Everybody went home this past weekend for the Thanksgiving break. But we did find one sophomore who was in Calhoun College right back there. And that's the college where half an hour or so ago we saw 30 or 40 heavily armed police officers and FBI agents head through the door. They were literally going door to door. She had a bang on her door. She opened it up, and there were, she said, 6 or 8 people. They had the ballistic helmets on. They had large weapons. It was a very intimidating presence for anybody who was up to no good. Of course, for this young woman who had been in her dorm all day, seeing the text messages and the coverage of what was going on, it was almost it was somewhat of a relief for her to see the good guys show up at the door. They escorted her out. She was all packed, ready to go home. She's now reunited with her father, who was here to pick her up. So she was very happy to be able to leave her dorm, where she had been in lockdown for the past, what are we going on, 4 or 5 hours at this point. She was very happy to see those officers arrive, but that's clear proof for us that they are going from building to building, knocking on every door, clearing every room, still looking for someone who may have had a long gun on campus. Earlier today, mid-morning, is when that call came in that started this whole process. It is going to be a lengthy process, because there are many buildings like this on campus with lots of rooms, lots of places where you could potentially hide or hide a weapon in the college, in the university, and all the different colleges on the university. It's a massive task, and it's going to take a lot longer if they really have to check out every single building on the main college campus. We saw them start with the old campus, which is kind of just over here, a block over here. They have now expanded it across to the other side of Elm Street, and in the meantime, all of the streets around here have been shut down. It's not just Yale University that is on lockdown. It is this section of New Haven where nobody is allowed to drive, nobody is allowed to walk. And you see the police presence. They're heading, more officers going into Calhoun College right now. That is in addition to all of the SWAT teams that have already gone in there and are already going door to door. I think that was the police chief actually going in there. Dean Esserman was one of the last uniforms you saw heading into that building. So everybody's involved in this, from FBI to ATF to Homeland Security to state police to the New Haven Police Department, and of course Yale's own police department and Yale Security Force. Those are two different entities. There are a lot of people looking around campus, but there is a lot of campus to look through before potentially before they're done with this search. And back to you.
And that's right. They're saying it could take hours. I mean, what a huge task to go building to building. And I can only imagine that sophomore must have been So relieved to see that it was the safety of officers knocking on her door. Where was she going after you talked to her? Home?
She certainly was.
I can imagine. Well,
She was going home. She right after well, the last thing I asked her was whether she had some place to go, because obviously with this going on, she doesn't want to stay on campus. And she says yes, her father was in a car as close as he could get, because so many roads are closed. But she had a suitcase with her. She was all set to go home. Very thankful to be heading home for Thanksgiving holiday.
And Kent, this is a day of sensitivity as well. We're approaching the 3 o'clock hour, and at 3 o'clock today, a report is going to be released, a final report, or not exactly a final report, but the latest on the Sandy Hook shooting. It's taken them a year to release this investigation and the report of how officers responded that day at the school. So this is a day to a lot of people. When you talk about school shootings, today is going to be a difficult day for many people as they're bracing for what's inside this report. And then to hear about a gunman on the campus at Yale, it just kind of gets you right there in the heart.
It is a very eerie coincidence. There's two things going on with Sandy Hook today. For one thing, we had a hearing this morning where a judge is considering still whether or not to release the 911 tapes from last December 14th in Newtown, Connecticut. That happened this morning. That hearing did not reach a conclusive end. The judge is still deciding. And then, yes, we're coming up on the hour when the Danbury State's attorney is releasing his summary of the state police report about what happened at Sandy Hook last December. So it is very much on the minds of everybody all across Connecticut, these two things, hearing those tapes of the people calling in that emergency and seeing this summary, this much smaller summary of the huge state police report about what happened. And this happens. We get a call about somebody with a gun heading to a school, a university, not an elementary school, but still on a day when everybody is talking and thinking about violence happening at a place of education. Then we get this call in at 9:30 this morning that somebody was allegedly heading to the Yale campus with a gun to do some harm. It's an eerie coincidence, certainly, and it's a reminder of we've got to remain vigilant here in Connecticut and all across the country as these threats continue to come in, because you never know when one of them is going to be very, very real, like the one we saw in Newtown more than 11 months ago.
Right, we're about to mark that anniversary on December 14th, of course. And right now in this Yale situation, at least there is some good news. This is break for students. It is, of course, a Thanksgiving holiday week. Some students, as you mentioned, the sophomore that you talked to, have stayed behind or are lucky to get a go home today. We don't have an exact number of students remaining on campus, but most of them have gone on home, which is a good thing.